Okay, welcome back to the Living Color podcast slash show slash whatever you want to call it. It's good to be back here for the second episode. My name is Matt Woodward, and in a week it's kind of crazy how much can change, really, and I think now more than ever you really see that as true. It's by the day I feel like just even watching like a little bit of these briefings and press conferences, I even tune in for like a minute or two, and I almost have to turn it off because I don't even know where they're at right now with some of this stuff. Well, the way they're some of these questions and the way that they answer them and how they're trying to like spin it in a certain way and make it sound like they're doing great with I don't know. Yeah, it's a whole crazy topic, and then to see that I think the one today says Wednesday, the 8th, I believe, April 8th, yeah, and just to see the one today where they're like trying to get people back to work, and like that was the one I was saying last week, and that they need to, something's gonna happen where these jobs, they can't be out for too long, but at the same time you can't rush something that you don't know, really, especially like a pandemic, obviously, something like this. And so to see him talk about it today, and it's gonna be interesting. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to like I'm in Colorado right now, and it's a statewide mandate where you got to, if you're going out in public, I don't think it's required right now, but I think it's like recommended to wear a mask or like handkerchief or anything really at this point, covering your nose and your mouth, and just so you even see it in most of the businesses you go in. It's kind of like at the point where if you're not wearing one, you kind of get like weird looks, and people kind of like trying to steer clear of you and all that. But yeah, it is a wild time, and so much can change in just a week. But it's taking me a week even just to get on this second episode, but I'm still trying to work out the kinks, obviously. I'm kind of filming in here in the backyard. I think I got like the neighbors over there, and I mean they're kind of like a ways away. I'd say almost 2 football fields away, so it's quite a distance. Then you obviously get the view of the valley a little bit there, and so I'm kind of figuring out the setup right now. I think it's either I was trying to figure out like the lighting and a whole bunch of things, like how I want to have like a whole kind of like set design, really. And it's taken me a while to, like I said in the first podcast / show. I might roll with show more than, a podcast is a show at this point. Podcast is really sort of one of the dominant mediums in media right now, and so I just don't want to label things too much, really, about podcast or show, or label it this or that, but yeah, this just trying to figure out the setup and just trying to eventually finally get this thing started took a while. When I went to college back in I started in 2011 as a freshman, and then did actually 5 years to this super senior year, which at Castleton University, which I don't regret at all. I had to, I was a few credits short of graduating as a 4 years straight as a senior, and so I was like, do I just go back for one semester, or do I go back for the full year? And I eventually decided to do the full year. And so when I was studying broadcast media, as I mentioned in the first show, that it's kind of such a wide field that there's so many things you can get into that even just this was in 2011 when I was a freshman. Just kind of, I originally wanted to get into as a as like a on-air host and an anchor for a show, but it's limited in certain fields. Like, in news, it's limited where you can either anchor, you can be a sports, you can be the main anchor, you can be like a field reporter, a porter, sports reporter, meteorologist. So it's varying, but it's limited in what you can like talk about. You can't just talk about whatever you want, obviously. So that was kind of around the time when podcasts started getting started. About like 2010, 2011, when it was kind of like an extension of radio, of being able to, say what you want, feel what you want, do what you want. And, you look at people like Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony and like those shows, like those radio shows where they're doing, it's more than radio. It's not just talking about like daily subjects. It's a whole program. It's a whole show. It's kind of almost kind of like a version of a lifestyle for a show, and that's really what I was trying to think, how could I be unique? How could I be different from everyone? And there's so many, genres and so many, like a variety of shows that how could I get started? And it took me even up until this point, almost a pandemic, But yeah, I'm still like trying to get comfortable with it. Like, obviously, I'm in my fucking backyard. I don't mean to swear, but I'm in my backyard here. And that's one thing. Like, even just getting comfortable, like swearing, like talking about anything, like stories, anything really. That's something that you just gotta kind of embrace, and that's what makes it fun, I think, and that's what kind of draws the viewer in. So, what's gonna happen, and that's kind of like one of the main reasons why I'm doing it, is because you can do what you want, say what you want, and I'm excited to start. This is only the second episode here, so just trying to make sure everything's still going. Like I said, I'm working out the kinks here. You see this? Like, it's a whole setup I have going here. Look at this. I'm not shooting on really an HD camera, This microphone setup it's all just like, it's kind of thrown together, but I need to start it at some point, this is April, I'm about to be 27 in May here, so it's about time, and I'm excited to start doing it. I'm not really, I'm not trying to set any of my expectations too high with anything, really. I mean, that speaks for a lot of things right now. As not to say that my love life isn't anything at this point. I've been single for forever, and I don't have a problem with it. But at a certain point, I think, I don't know. When you go through like a pandemic, I kind of wonder about how people in relationships are handling it. Really, it's kind of like, I feel like it'd be great, but then obviously you have days where you gotta work through it, but at a certain point I feel like that makes it better, right? Like, that you gotta makes it stronger, I guess. But yeah, it's a crazy time to be single in a pandemic. That's for damn sure. Like, you can never you can't plan this one any better, right? But I don't know, man. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to have like the second episode here going. I know the sun's kind of going down. That's kind of why I'm doing this here in the backyard. The lighting's not bad, Still trying to, like, as I said, work on the setup, and when the sun gives you the free light, you gotta take in the beautiful Colorado sun, going over the Rockies there, and over the foothills, I should say, of the Rockies. But yeah, I'm seeing all these ideas being floated around recently. In the past week, since I even done the first show, about how the MLB. Oh, see, here we go, bumping the stand here. I see how the MLB is thinking about having just teams play in Arizona, and kind of quarantining all 30 teams. I believe it's 30 teams, 32 teams. Uh, I believe they're gonna quarantine the teams and isolate them, uh, but not have like their families for. I believe they were thinking the duration of the season. So that's an interesting. That's an interesting idea that's thrown out there. I don't know how that's gonna be. I don't know how that's gonna be well received by the players. I saw something on the Pat McAfee show. Shout out to Pat McAfee. Great new YouTube show. I wouldn't even say new at this point. He's been doing it for a couple of years, and he's dominating right now more than ever. I saw that I believe, talked to someone linked to the or linked to the MLB. Or he quoted Jeff Passan, who talked. I can't remember. You can't quote me, obviously, but I believe it was Jeff Passan who talked to an MLB player, who said initially that he was not, or that he was not down. He would not be willing to go play in Arizona for the duration of the season. Just because he wouldn't want to be from his family for that long. He wouldn't want to, whatever the multitude of reasons. And then I guess maybe a day later or two, he had a conversation with his wife, and his wife was like, "You gotta do what you gotta do to provide for the family." And he kind of changed his tune a little bit. And I'm assuming that would be something that some players. Yeah, I'm curious just to see how it's going to be received by players. I'm sure that some players will kind of fall along with that. They'll originally be like, I'm not, I don't know how I feel about playing for months in Arizona, being isolated like that, and then I'm sure that their significant other, I'm sure, will kind of get in their ear a little bit and be like, hey, you got to do whatever it takes, and their minds may change a little bit, but at the same time, I think that's going to kind of require for the MLB to change a little bit, and it's been years in the making, and they've been kind of behind the eight ball on that one, as is kind of duly noted at this point. It's kind of sad to see how far that I wouldn't say it's. They've fallen off too, drastically. They're still a popular sport in America, but, I think, they're kind of on their back foot at this point, really. They're struggling to catch up on the social game, obviously. They have these copyright laws, excuse me. They have these copyright laws where, you can't really post their content online because it's, MLB copyrighted, and there's some things that they really have to figure out. And I think one thing that they kind of, one change that you saw that they implemented, and it's kind of something that they could have done years ago, but it's kind of nice to see that they're finally doing it, and it could be implemented for a long time, is the players on the field mic'd up. I think that's a great thing. Obviously at certain points where in critical situations, or not even critical situations, there are plays that happen in the beginning of a game that matter. If you play baseball or you just follow along with baseball, just even like the little plays matter. But yeah, I think having the players mic'd up is a great thing, because it kind of gives a little insight into what the players are thinking. It gives a little more. It adds a little more for the fans, and I think that's needed in a game of baseball where, you do have times where you're just kind of sitting around, and you just wait pitch by pitch. It can drag, especially it's one thing if you're in the stadium. I think it's kind of. I think it's a shared opinion that, it's one thing to go to a baseball game at the stadium, but I think it's another thing to watch the game on TV. Now, if you're like me, personally speaking, this is just for me. I played baseball growing up, so it's one thing I love watching baseball on TV. if you're asking me to watch the Marlins and pick any team, I don't not to single out the Marlins or anything, but just any team like that, any team that I don't really have a remote interest in. Two teams, I don't know if I'm gonna watch that game, but the same can't really be said for football or even NBA at this point. NBA has games where there's two teams on in a night, and I'll watch the game even if I don't give a damn who's playing. But baseball, that's one thing they're trying to figure out, and to see them try to get these games in Arizona in the coming months, and it's gonna take a lot. And one thing that I've been reading and kind of hearing from like the media members, I should say, is I think it is kind of there's a weird, it's a big discussion and kind of like a weird one that hasn't been had in a long time, maybe if ever. I think sports are, they're needed right now, and I believe it was Max Kellerman on First Take who was saying, I think he was quoting Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States, one of the former president back in the day, and he was saying that sports are needed in a time of crisis like this, because it gives the people a form of entertainment, and gives them kind of not only distracts them, but it can give them some joy, bring them some happiness, but at the same time, I think we're in a time where there's such a limited amount of tests. I know that's improved since I last did my show last week. I'm assuming it's improved because they've been trying at this, but I if it's not, it is a bad look to have a professional sports league where you have 30 to 32 teams, whatever it is, and give or take 25 men on a roster, and then when you have the medical and personnel, and you have the managers and the staff, pitching coaches, hitting coach, all that, the essential personnel on the team, you have all those people getting tests, right? But you don't have people from the general public who can, just go out and get tests, who are like really sick and who might need it, especially in some of these vulnerable categories that they talk about. So it's a weird scenario, and then you see, it's kind of like it brings you to another thing that's going on in the sports world, in the same sort of situation as Dana White, the UFC president. I believe he's still a UFC president. I know he sold it with I believe what's his name? Tillman Fertitas, I believe. Tillman Fertitta. I'm not sure if it was Fertitas, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, you just see Dana White, where he's looking for international fights. He's looking to I'm not sure if it's either buy a private island or lease a private, I believe it's buy a private island, and just have international fights there, and then just fly the fighters in, have them tested, and he's not giving a location on it. He's not really telling the media where it might be at, and I think I have respect. I do respect, and I have respect for Dana, and I do believe he is walking a fine line, though. With this, I think he's in sort of, I don't want to say like an easier situation than a league like the Major League Baseball, because it's one thing where baseball, is a lot of players on the field at one time, and you have a lot of players, and you have a lot of staff, but with fighting, you're actually, exchanging blows and punches and bodily fluids, everything with fighters, and in such a small space. And It is one thing if they can get him tested. That's one thing. It does require less testing, but at the same time, if it kind of brings up that same. I don't know if it's a ethical question, but what do you do? I mean, he's going full steam ahead, having that fight on I believe April 18th. He's going full steam ahead. Tony Ferguson versus Gaethje. Since Habib Nurmagomedov is back in Dagestan, his homeland there. He's out of the fight he isn't out of the fight for the 5th time, but the fight in general is canceled for the 5th time, and obviously it's one of the more anticipated fights in UFC that people can remember. And I'm just like a kind of a casual follower at the UFC. It's sort of a wild. It is a wild sport. Like it's it's so hard to. It's hard to really describe what you're seeing. Like it takes a different type of human being to enter a cage like that. Pretty much in your, almost your underwear. You know what I mean? Just like these tiny shorts in an arena like that, and enter a cage and hear him close that cage door behind you with another man or woman, across from you, and you're pretty much fighting to rip their head off. Like that it's a whole. You can't even believe it. You can't even describe it. Some of the fights you see, and that's what makes it so great at times. But at a certain point, I'm not really big into violence like that, so it is tough for me to watch at times. I can't really take blood like that. I can to a certain point, but once it gets all over the mat and it's, splattered like that, I can't really take it. It is a lot, but Dana White, he's full steam ahead. He's doing April 18th or 19th there. I believe it's 18th. That's next Saturday. Yep, April 18th. He's full steam ahead, and he was on Get Up this morning with Mike Greenberg, Greeny. And Greeny was trying to get it out of him. He's trying to get a location because Dana hasn't released it to the media yet. And Dana was just like, all I can tell you, it's on ESPN. And then, Greeny, of course, kept trying to get the answer out of him. And Dana was just like, ESPN, pay-per-view, ESPN Plus. That's it. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. It's a weird time. It's kind of... It's not a money grab, I don't think, at this point, obviously, and it wasn't before. I think it was just one of those things where... Sorry, I keep looking over here. There's so many fucking bunnies around here that's like... You just look around, they're everywhere. And, even just over here, there's, 4 of them off camera. Not only that, there's a whole other thing off camera over here. I can't even describe it. I haven't obviously touched it. There's, coyote bones. I'll try to get a video of it over here. There's, a coyote skull or bone and... carcass. I don't even know. It's carcass from last summer that is just down to the bones. It looks like something out of a museum or something. It's crazy. I'll try to get a video, but yeah, I think it's kind of wild that they're full steam ahead with the UFC fights, and they do have to get these sports leagues back. I don't know how the NBA is gonna try to get back. I see they're trying to do a horse competition, but is it gonna be enough? To for the viewer, I don't know. I don't know. I think it was just announced a little while ago before I started the show that they're gonna have select players. It was Trae Young, Chris Paul, and Zach LaVine are a few NBA players that I saw, and then they're gonna have WNBA players and then former NBA players play in a horse competition. And I don't, I can respect what they're trying to do, and I appreciate it, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough right now.